Welcome to Santa Clarita Weekly, where we cover all things local in Santa Clarita Valley every Saturday morning at 9 on KQRU 107.9. Join hosts Tim Haddock and Sage Rafferty as they uncover the latest news, events, sports highlights, and more, keeping you connected and engaged with what matters most in our hometown.
Welcome back for another edition of Santa Clarita Weekly with Tim Haddock and Sage Rafferty. I'm Sage, he's Tim, and you can listen to us on the radio at KQRU 107.9 FM on Saturday mornings at 9 o'clock. We are also on YouTube and Instagram, and you can find us online at santaclaritastar.com. Federal immigration agents attempted entry into two Los Angeles County elementary schools on April 7th, sparking widespread outrage from educators and California lawmakers who condemned the move as a violation of student safety and a consequence of Trump's rollback of protections for sensitive locations. Congressman George Whitesides, who represents California's 27th district, which includes Santa Clarita, just returned from a bipartisan congressional trip to Iraq. He visited U.S. troops, including many from California, and shared some reflections on the trip. In sports, the Hart baseball team shut out Castaic in a matchup of two of the top teams in the Foothill League. The Saugus softball has won 8 games in a row and is undefeated in the Foothill League. At the Grand Prix of Long Beach, Valencia's Colton Herta finished in 7th place in the IndyCar Series race. His teammate at Andretti Global, Kyle Kirkwood, won the race. The Kings are finishing the NHL season strong, securing home ice in the first round of the playoffs and shutting out the Oilers again. And after an start, the Dodgers went 3-6 and lost 2 games to the Chicago Cubs at Dodger Stadium. All right, so let's talk about the federal agents who attempted to enter 2 Los Angeles elementary schools. Federal agents from the Department of Homeland Security were denied entry to 2 Los Angeles elementary schools last week after attempting to conduct what they called wellness checks on students, sparking outrage from educators, parents, and California politicians who fear a new wave of immigration enforcement targeting children. The incident occurred on April 7th at Lillian Street Elementary and Russell Elementary, both part of the Los Angeles Unified School District in the Florence Graham neighborhood. The DH agents, identified as members of the Homeland Security Investigations Unit, arrived in plain clothes and sought access to 5 students in grades 1 through 6, claiming they were unaccompanied minors who had arrived at the U.S. border. The agents asserted they had authorization from the students' caretakers, but LAUSD Superintendent Alberto Carvalho said that this was false after the district verified with families. School principals adhering to LAUSD's sanctuary district policy refused entry because the agents lacked a judicial warrant. The agents were reluctant to show identification and quickly pocketed their IDs when staff attempted to record their names and badge numbers, according to Carvalho. District legal representatives and school board police were dispatched, and the agents left without gaining access. The attempted visits come after President Donald Trump signed an executive order on January 20th, rescinding a 2011 DHS policy that restricted immigration enforcement in sensitive locations like schools, churches, and hospitals. The order allows agencies like U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement to conduct operations in these spaces, raising concerns among critics that schools are no longer safe havens for students. So California's U.S. Senators Alex Padilla and Adam Schiff issued a joint statement on April 11th condemning the incident. They said ICE and immigration enforcement do not belong in schools, let alone elementary schools, and have no business targeting young children. And they praised the principal's actions and demanded answers from ICE, and their offices have requested a briefing from the agency. And other California Democrats echoed their outrage. Congresswoman Judy Chu called the incident absolutely incensing, warning that parents may keep children home from school out of fear. Congressman Robert Garcia, who's from Long Beach, led 18 House Democrats in a letter to DHS Secretary Kristi Noem, criticizing the agency for falsely claiming the visits were welfare checks and noting that 4 students at Russell Elementary were not unaccompanied minors, as the DHS claimed. So Los Angeles City Council member Hugo Soto Martinez called the tactics a despicable new low, while State Senator Sasha Renee Perez introduced legislation to require schools to notify families immediately if immigration agents are present. DHS maintained the visits were not immigration enforcement, but welfare checks to ensure the children were not being exploited or trafficked. However, Carvalho and community advocates questioned why young children were targeted and whether the so-called wellness check claim was a pretext. LAUSD has distributed a Know Your Rights cards to students and families, and other school districts issued precautionary messages about potential immigration enforcement. The incident has heightened fears in Los Angeles' immigrant communities, with some educators noting parallels to declining attendance in districts due to similar concerns. So LAUSD, the nation's second largest school district, remains committed to a sanctuary status, prohibiting cooperation with federal immigration agencies. And I should note that there have been no reports of any DHS officials attempting to enter schools in Santa Clarita, but this is actually pretty close. All right, so next let's talk about Congressman George Whitesides visiting Iraq. For those who don't know, George Whitesides is a freshman congressman who took office in January of 2025 of this year after defeating Republican incumbent Mike Garcia. And before politics, he was NASA's chief of staff and CEO of Virgin Galactic. So he's no stranger to high-stakes missions. But last week, on April 14th and 15th, Whitesides joined a bipartisan group of lawmakers on a trip to Iraq, visiting Baghdad in northern Iraq. His goal was to connect to U.S. service members, hear their stories, and better understand the military's role in the region. Now, Santa Clarita, we have a proud military community here. I'm a veteran myself, and many of our neighbors work in places like Edwards Air Force Base or in Palmdale, both part of Whitesides districts. So when he met California troops in Iraq, that could also mean folks right here in Santa Clarita Valley. But Whitesides talked about the honor of meeting these service members and even shared a moment from his meeting with Major General Kevin Leahy, who leads the fight against ISIS as part of Operation Inherent Resolve.
Hi, everybody. Congressman George Whitesides here. I'm coming at you this morning from northern Iraq, the Kurdish area of Iraq, and we are here on a codel with other congressional members to support our brave men and women who are representing the military forces of the United States. Yesterday, I met with troops from our area, from Santa Clarita, northern San Fernando Valley, and Bakersfield, and I just conveyed to them how proud we are of them, how impressed I was of their command of the local politics and the dynamics of this area. We're going to be visiting an additional few countries as we go through this trip, and I'll be posting those videos as we go through the next few days. Thanks, everyone.
All right, so you're listening to KQRU 107.9 FM in Santa Clarita. You can listen to Santa Clarita Weekly on Saturday mornings at 9 and on YouTube, Instagram, wherever you listen to podcasts. I'm going to turn it over to Tim to talk to us about local sports. Tim?
Okay, so we're going to talk about the Foothill League softball and baseball teams. Both of them, all the teams in the Foothill League are kind of in the middle of their league season right now. Let's start with baseball. The West Ranch baseball team beat Highland 5-2 and Camarillo 6-1 and is in first place in the Foothill League at 7-1. West Ranch hasn't played a Foothill League game in a while. They're kind of in a little break right now, but they will play games against San Marcos, Granada Hills, and La Mirada before returning to Foothill League play. The Hart baseball team beat Valencia 8-2 and shut out Castaic 6-0. In the game against Castaic, Ryder Firstsmith went 3 for 3 with a double, drove in 2 runs, and scored 2 runs. Hayden Rhodes was 2 for 3 with a triple and 2 RBIs. And Tristan Purfoy pitched 6 scoreless innings, giving up 5 hits, 1 walk, and striking out 7. Hart plays Castaic in its next Foothill League game. The Saugus baseball team lost to Chatsworth 3-2, but shut out Golden Valley 3-0. Caleb Haig tossed a 2-hit shutout, striking out 6 with no walks. Abraham Ramirez was 2 for 2 with a double, an RBI, and scored a run. The next Foothill League game for Saugus is against Golden Valley. The Castaic baseball team beat Dos Pueblos 8-2, but lost to Hart 6-0. Castaic plays Hart again in its next Foothill League game. The Valencia baseball team lost to Crescenta Valley 5-2, but beat Canyon 11-1. Valencia plays Canyon again in their next Foothill League game. The Golden Valley baseball team lost to Wainimi 5-0 and to Saugus 3-0. The next Foothill League game for Golden Valley is against Saugus, and the Canyon baseball team lost to Calabasas 10-3 and Valencia 11-1. The next Foothill League game for Canyon is against Valencia. On to softball. The Saugus softball team is undefeated in the Foothill League. They've won 8 games in a row, and they are 7-0 in the Foothill League standings and in first place. Saugus beat Dos Pueblos 5-3 in 8 innings and beat Canyon 5. Saugus scored 2 runs in the 7th inning to rally and beat Canyon. Canyon scored 2 runs in the 5th inning to take a 4-3 lead. Amelia Johnson hit 2 home runs, drove in 4 runs for Saugus. She was 2-for and scored 2 runs in the game. Canyon's Isabella Heasley was 3-for and drove in 3 runs. Saugus plays Valencia in their next Foothill League game. The Valencia softball team lost to Granada Hills 14-4, but beat Hart 10-1. The West Ranch softball team beat Golden Valley 20-5 and Castaic 8-6. The West Ranch softball team plays Canyon in their next Foothill League game. The Canyon softball team lost to Saugus 5-4. The Hart softball team lost to Valencia 10-1. Hart plays a doubleheader against Burroughs from Burbank before its next Foothill League game against Canyon. The Castaic softball team lost to West Ranch 8-6 and plays Golden Valley in their next Foothill League game. And finally, the Golden Valley softball team plays Heritage Christian before their next Foothill League game against Castaic. We're going to move on to IndyCar racing in the Grand Prix of Long Beach, where Valencia's Colton Herta finished in 7th place in Long Beach. So IndyCar Series driver Colton Herta, who's from Valencia, finished in 7th place at the Grand Prix of Long Beach. His Andretti Global teammate Kyle Kirkwood won the race. He started from the pole and won the Grand Prix of Long Beach for the 2nd time in his career. Herta started the race from on the front row with Kirkwood. He dropped in the field early in the race and battled for a top 10 finish. Herta is in 7th place in the IndyCar Series standings after 3 races. Alex Palou, who finished in 2nd place at Long Beach, leads the IndyCar Series standings, and Kirkwood is in 2nd place. In hockey, in the NHL, the Kings are finishing the season strong. The Kings clinched home ice in the first round of the playoffs and punctuated it with the 6-5 win over the Seattle Kraken for their 4th win in a row. Samuel Hellenius scored 2 goals, and the Kings preserved a 3-goal lead in the 3rd period to hold off the Kraken. The Kings took a 5-2 lead after Hellenius scored his 2nd goal of the game in the 3rd period. The Kraken followed with 3 unanswered goals to cut the lead to 1. Eli Tolvanen scored for the Kraken with 30 seconds left to play in the game, but the Kings held on to win. Before the game against the Kraken, the Kings shut out the Edmonton Oilers 5-0. The Kings scored 3 goals in the first period, and Kevin Fiala scored his team-leading 35th goal in the 2nd period. The Kings will play the Oilers in the first round of the NHL Stanley Cup playoffs starting next week.
All right. Hey, Tim, I have a couple questions before we move on to the Dodgers. So what's fueling this late season surge for the LA Kings, and can they maintain this momentum heading into the postseason?
Yeah, so the schedule is kind of working in the Kings' favor in this last couple of weeks of the season. They had a game against the Ducks, and the Ducks are not going to be in the playoffs. They weren't a horrible team this year. They just weren't a playoff team. They weren't a good team, and so they're struggling. They're going to finish the season out of the playoffs, and they're going to be in the draft lottery for next year. That was an easy game for the Kings. Any game against the Ducks for the Kings is always a challenge, but the Ducks aren't a very good team, and they're not playing very well at the end of the season. The Kraken are kind of in the same boat. Seattle Kraken aren't going to go to the playoffs. They're going to be in the draft lottery too. And even though they tend to play the Kings tough, it's always hard to score goals against the Kraken. They've always been a tough team to score against. They're not having a good season either, and they're kind of just playing out the season, trying to get it over with and move on and try to build for next year. So those two teams aren't very good. And then the Oilers are just hurt. 2 of their top players haven't been in the lineup, Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl. And so they're struggling. They're not 100%. They're not playing at full strength, and the Kings are taking advantage. Taking advantage of an undermanned and a team that's playing a little hurt right now. And so it may be advantageous that they're getting the Oilers in the first round, because the Oilers aren't playing well right now, and they're not 100% right now either.
All right. So what about Quentin Byfield? So Quentin Byfield has been a highlight for the LA Kings. This season, he's continued to shine, scoring in 5 straight games earlier this year. But Tim, how do you assess Byfield's growth into a potential franchise star, and what's his ceiling for the playoffs?
Yeah. Quentin Byfield is definitely the future of this team. He's been one of the top prospects in the Kings organization for a while now, and he's been with the Kings for a few years, and keeps getting better and better each year. He crossed the 20 goal threshold this year, and he's turned into not necessarily a good goal scorer, but he comes up with a lot of clutch goals, and he's been one of those players that can score goals in bunches. He showed that earlier this year with his 5-game goal streak. So, he's definitely the future for the Kings. And, he keeps getting better. He keeps being put in positions, being put in spots where he can shine and can be productive for this team. But he's definitely going to be the next generation of Kings once, the likes of Anze Kopitar and Drew Doughty and even Adrian Kempe tend to on the downside of their careers and start moving toward retirement. But no, definitely Quentin Byfield is definitely one of the shining, promising stars on this Kings team. And the way he's been playing this year, it looks like he's going to be a good one for a while.
All right. So let's move on to the Dodgers. So after starting the season 8-0, the Dodgers went 3-6 against the Philadelphia Phillies, Washington Nationals, and Chicago Cubs. They dropped from first place in the National League West standings to third place. The Dodgers lost 2 of 3 games to the Cubs at Dodger Stadium. One of those games, the Dodgers lost 16-0. It was the worst loss of the season for the Dodgers. The game ended with Miguel Rojas, an infielder for the Dodgers, pitching the 8th and 9th innings. It was a close game until the 7th inning. The Cubs led 2-0 after 6, but scored 14 runs in the final 3 innings. The Cubs hit 4 home runs, and catcher Carson Kelly hit 2 of them, but it was an ugly game, and the Dodgers are wrapping up a 3-game series against the Colorado Rockies before heading on the road for a weekend series against the Texas Rangers. So, Tim, Yoshinobu Yamamoto and Tyler Glasnow, who is from Santa Clarita, have shined, but starters haven't pitched deep, and Snell's injury raises questions. So what's your take on the rotation's depth, especially with an aging roster needing rest for October?
Well, yeah. I mean, Yamamoto and Glasnow both have had some good outings early on in the season. Pitchers usually take a little while to get up to speed in the early part of the season. That very few pitchers ever start the season strong. They need time to get some innings in, get their arms a little more used to pitching every 5th day, and so that this isn't too surprising to see the Dodgers starters struggle a little bit. The Blake Snell injury is a little concerning. He was supposed to be one of the better pitchers added to this staff, but the Dodgers do have the luxury of depth in starting pitching, and that's going to be showing up in the next few games here. One of the pitchers that they're bringing up is Landon Knack. He's been one of the prospects in the Dodgers organization for a few years now. He pitched a little bit last year, and he's shown that he can be a reliable starter in this rotation. He's not going to be a star, but he's not going to hurt this team either. So he's always been a decent pitcher. He's always been a reliable pitcher, and he's going to give the Dodgers a good outing. Another sign that the Dodgers are looking forward to is having Bobby Miller come back up. He's been called back up from the minor leagues. He took a nasty line drive off the forehead in spring training, and that put him in concussion protocol, and he spent a few weeks at the beginning of the season in the minor leagues just to kind of get his game back. So it was a scary moment, but it looks like he's back to normal, back to healthy anyway. And they're going to call him up. They're going to see what he has, and if he looks like he did a couple seasons ago, the Dodgers are going to be in good shape. So those are 2 pitchers that are going to show how deep this pitching staff is. Landon Knack and Bobby Miller are both going to get a chance to fill in for the Dodgers while some of their top starters are recovering from injuries and just struggling a little bit. So the depth of this starting rotation is one of the strengths of this team. And like I said, these next couple of weeks, we're going to see how deep it is and how strong the pitching staff really is in the early part of this season.
So, Tim, Dodger Stadium drew somewhere around like 3.9 million fans in 2024, the most in Major League Baseball. with home games against the Rockies this week and tickets starting around $65. How do you see the team's hot start and stars like Ohtani driving fan turnout in 2025? I know it hasn't stopped you from going to the games. Right?
Well, I've only been to one game. I've only been to one game so far this season. Yeah, it's getting a little out of my my price range too. But the Dodgers are always the Dodgers have always been one of the top drawers in attendance in the major leagues for years and years and years. I mean, they're always over 3 million fans. They've been getting close to 4 million fans every year, and that's just the way they are. It doesn't seem to matter how much tickets are or who they're playing or what day of the week it is. The Dodgers will draw 50,000 fans. To sell out Dodger Stadium is 56,000, and they've been over 50,000 fans for every home game this season. I think that what I saw, almost every home game this season has been over 50,000 fans at the stadium. Most of them have been sellouts. So the Dodgers are going to draw. It doesn't seem to matter how much parking goes up, how much food goes up, how much tickets go up. Dodger fans go to games and they like their team and they like watching this team play. And it doesn't seem to matter how much tickets are. The people are going to figure out a way to go see their Dodgers play at Dodger Stadium.
Yeah, so I know the Cubs just beat the Dodgers. Dodgers have had a kind of a rough time recently, despite the fact that they have some of the best players in Major League Baseball. People are calling it the curse of 47 since they seem to be doing pretty badly since they visited the White House. Is this slump a blip for a $450 million super team, or are there real concerns about their consistency?
Well, no, this is what baseball teams go through. I mean, as good as the Dodgers are, and they're a very good team, they're probably going to lose 50 games, at least 50 games during the regular season. So, every team is going to have their losses. And I don't think people understand that the Cubs are one of the best teams in baseball. I mean, I know it's only the first few weeks of the season, but they have the best offense in the league. They score the most runs in the league. They're a good hitting team. And if you give them a chance to hit the ball, if you give them a chance to put the ball in play, they're going to get on base and they're going to score runs. And losing to the Cubs is not it's not a disgrace. It's not, it's going to happen. This Cubs team is going to win a lot of games and they're going to beat a lot of good teams. They're one of the better teams in the league. But no, this is just a blip. The 3-6 run that the Dodgers went on. It's nothing to panic about. The Dodgers are going to lose games and they're going to probably lose. They're going to lose, probably going to lose 50 or 60 games this season. And when they do, it's just don't panic. It's not the time to panic. And that's what every team goes through. So this team is good. This team is going to score a lot of runs. They have a great pitching staff. We just talked about how, they have a deep pitching staff, deep starting rotation, and it's going to show. It's going to shine during the season. And this team is going to win a lot of games. So yeah, this whole 3-6 curse of the 47 little slump that they're in, that's all it is. It's just a little slump. And they'll break out of it and they'll go back to winning games and being one of the best teams in the league again.
Right. All right. Thank you, Tim. So that's our show. So tune in next week for more discussions about the news from Santa Clarita. You can listen to us on the radio at KQRU 107.9 FM at 9 on Saturday mornings. You can also watch us on YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram and listen to us on SantaClaritaStar.com, wherever you listen to podcasts. So leave us a comment and be sure to subscribe to Santa Clarita Weekly online. Thanks for listening and have a great week.
Thank you for listening to Santa Clarita Weekly. You can watch the show on Santa Clarita Star's YouTube channel and Facebook page, as well as listen in on the radio at KQRU 107.9. Visit SantaClaritaStar.com for more content and tune in right here to KQRU 107.9. A new voice for Santa Clarita.
As you go about your day, you want to know what's happening to keep you ahead. The Santa Clarita Star has you covered. At SantaClaritaStar.com, you will find stories that you won't find anywhere else. See the local news website everyone is talking about. Visit SantaClaritaStar.com today.